Thank you for coming. And I'm going to use the slides to keep myself on track because I'll get off track and then it'll be 9 o'clock and there won't be anybody here. I'll just be talking to myself. But feel free to ask questions. I mean, I know we leave time for questions at the end, but it'll just make it way more interactive and stuff like that. So, oh wait, did I hit the button right? Oh, I did it. Oh, that's okay. The only important part is that I'm a lover of dogs. That's the most important thing to take away. But I just wanted you to know I didn't like make this up. I've been doing therapy for a long time. I've worked with young adults. I love play therapy. And I oversee offices here. We have 5 offices in Michigan where we work with the whole gamut of folks. So our closest here is in Livonia, and then we have an office in Ypsilanti, and then the others are on the west side of the state. So what are we doing today? So I based on what Charlie shared with me, I'm hoping that everybody leaves with the understanding that you're not alone, and that you understand kind of that cycle of caregiver fatigue, which you've probably heard before. It's probably not going to, but maybe we can add to it, right? And then learn some ways to improve your own mental health, right? And I'm just going to use a blanket term and refer to you as caregivers, and I'm going to use the word child. I know some folks have adults and things like that, but I'll just kind of blanket that. What else was I going to say about? I'll remember it 3 slides later. But tell me, if you're comfortable, just tell me a little bit about you. We know you're from Florida.
I'm originally from Bulgaria, actually.
Oh, okay.
I've been in the States for about like 8, almost 9 years.
Okay.
And we have a 6-year-old boy. He was diagnosed with autism when he was 3.
Okay.
And yeah, our life kind of changed completely.
Yes.
After that, and do you want to add something?
What are your names?
Mike.
And I'm Galina.
Galina.
Yes.
Mike. Galina. Mike. Galina.
My name is Ann. I work for the district. I'm a parapro with the transition program, the 18 to 26-year-olds.
Okay.
And I'm here just to listen. And
Awesome.
I was a caregiver for my mom, so I had different things. But
Right. But it applies. My dad and I just lost my mom, and so I said, this is good for both of us. So it was really kind of cathartic for me to kind of put this, and it's like, oh wait, if I'm going to tell people to do this, then maybe I should do it myself. It's like when you go into the doctor and, he's like 300 or 400 pounds, and he says, you really need to lose weight. And you're going to help me with that. Okay. Does everybody have a writing stick? A pen? Okay. All right, so I'm going to do some true and false, and then you guys can do this separate or together. Just jot it down, and then if you're comfortable, we'll chat. So true or false? I know, and I don't know what was going on there. Don't mind that. I know there are others in somewhat similar situations. I still feel alone. No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. I mean, the fact that you're here, right, and there's other people. So, I mean, that is very telling. And when you've got such a young child, and the only thing you see on social media is how great little Johnny's doing, and look at this, and look what he joined, right, and all these, and so the perception is, am I not a good parent? Why is this not happening for my child? And we'll get to that too. I feel exhausted most of the time. That's just parenthood, right? That doesn't end. Does that end, Dad? Do you feel exhausted all of the time? I like my child all the time. And you don't have to answer these out loud. You can, if you say yes, I don't believe you. It is okay to not like your child. It is natural. And in particular, and this is neurotypical or not, right? Neurotypical, neurodivergent, they work your nerves. And that's okay. That's normal. So part of this mental health process is acknowledging, like right now, me and Johnny might just throw some hands here. But because I don't want to go to jail, I'm going to remember what Bridget talked about. So that's kind of that's the point of today. I am a good parent, caregiver, guardian. Again, it's so normal not to feel like you're doing a good job. You are, and the fact that you're here says that you're a superior parapro, that you're great parents, or else you wouldn't be seeking other information, right? So you are. And, you know, if your students are for the most part staying in school, and if, what is your son's name? Martin. Martin?
Yeah.
Okay, if Martin is, you know, he's fed and clothed, you're winning. That's what you have to do. I often feel guilty about my responses, feelings, or actions toward my child, or adult, or students. Again, very natural, because the perception is when you see little Johnny's mom on Facebook, what is she? She's smiling and she's taking him to the park, and oh, and they got like donuts, and oh, they pet a dog. Yeah, right. Let's talk about all the stuff in between on the way to the park that happened until you let Johnny run. Like, that's the real stuff, right? And so the reality is, as caregivers, we have a million things on our mind. We have parents that we're worried about. We have friends and family we're worried about. We have work. We have homes to maintain. You know, and all of these things are going through your mind constantly, and all you're asking is for someone to put their shoes on. Why can't you just put your shoes on? Well, we know why they can't. That's not in question. But then we feel guilty, and that's where the cycle starts. But I just wanted to normalize this more than anything. So this is perfectly normal. So there's 3 stages of caregiver burnout. So you're very familiar with this and have seen. So have you heard of the caregiver burnout? Okay. So we'll go through each one, and then at the end we'll talk about, like, okay, well, what the heck now? So that first stage is the strain and overload. And if you look up this 3 stages of caregiver burnout, you'll get a variety of different things in terms of like what they call each stage, but they're all the same. So strain and overload, then withdrawal and isolation, on to complete burnout. So strain and overload. So this is the first stage. You notice some increased stress, some strain due to the demands of caregiving, a little bit overwhelmed and exhausted. You're balancing responsibilities with all other aspects of your life. You notice some disturbances in sleep and things like that. So what this would look like on a day-to-day basis as a caregiver is, you know, I'm finding that I'm attentive to the person I'm caring for, and I'm doing okay there, but I'm giving it that 100%. So the other things around me are maybe lagging. So I'm finding myself very anxious because my house is a mess because I'm tending to my person, or I'm really irritated that I have to go to this other meeting that I've always gone to, but I'm finding myself more irritated that I have to be at this work meeting. So that's what it kind of looks like. So it can easily go unnoticed and then roll into that second stage. I figured a COVID picture is a good photo for the isolation, right? We all felt that. But you know, as this kind of persists, you know, you start to like find yourself withdrawing from social stuff. So again, you're giving your person, your work 100%. So there's just not a lot left. So when your friend says, hey, let's go out and have a glass of wine, you want to come over, we're having dinner, you're like, no thanks, but no thanks, right? And you just sort of slowly pull away. You're not being unkind to anyone, but it just happens kind of organically. And you do have feelings of loneliness, the depression, all of this starts to really intensify. And again, it is normal in this stage. I had another thought and it left me just that quick. And then that last stage. So this is the complete exhaustion. You've got the batteries drained, your mental, emotional, physical exhaustion. You're having issue. You're either always tired, always sleeping, and now you're sort of emotionally detached from the person you're caring for. At this point, it feels in the moments, and this isn't necessarily all the time, but you start to feel burdened, right? Because, well, let's face it, if you have to put socks on a certain way every day, and the pants have to be a certain texture, or certain noises, or you have to coach somebody to get them to school, and then there's a tantrum at the school, and then we've got to get them in, and then there's a tantrum. It does lead to burnout. And then there's resentment because, okay, in the 10 minutes that we had this tantrum, I could have done so many other things. In this stage, we sometimes will lash out at that person or people, and there's usually I call them the anchor person. Whoever your anchor person is, they end up being the one that you really lash out at, right? Because they're your anchor, they're not going anywhere. With all of these stages, they're not like you hit this one, and this one necessarily, right? You can kind of rotate through them, which is kind of the worst part of, when you're here, you're sort of in this state of like fight or flight. And we'll talk more about that too. But you can vacillate and kind of run through all of them, similar to the stages of grief you've probably heard of, very similar to that. You don't just stay in each stage. It can depend on what else is going on in your life, the life of your loved ones. So, but that's kind of the mechanics. So again, I just want to normalize this. The reason we have such a thing as the caregiver burnout stages is because it's real, and a lot of people are going through it. So, any thoughts or comments? Or I see nodding.
Yeah, I feel like I wrote this.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And you've already taken some really powerful steps to help with this. So, I won't put you on the spot. We can talk after. I was going to say something. I was like, oh no, let me not put her on the spot. But thank you for sharing. Yes, this is again. This does not make us a bad people. This doesn't make the people we care for bad people. This just means that life is hard. And I had, my sister said she read this, and I think it's an analogy used many times. So my sister has 4 children, and 3 of them are neurodivergent with autism, pervasive development disorder, ADD, all kinds of, and then my best friend also has 2 children who have autism. So what my sister said, she remembers, being pregnant with her first daughter, the oldest who has autism just turned 21, and it was like, okay, I am going to Paris. I cannot wait. I have my, what's it called? The hat. Beret, thank you. I have my beret, I have my fancy shoes, and I'm on the plane and I'm practicing my French, and then I get off the plane. Yes, I'm in, or Paris, Ohio, right? And it's like, this is not what I signed up for. This was not the trip I booked. This was not the life I booked. And it feels like that when you have a child who has special needs, right? Or it feels like, golly, and then it rocks your world because you have all these plans of, this is what our life will look like. This is great. And it's like, we're still in Ohio. It looks like I'm not going to Paris, So, yes, that's why we cycle through this. So, it's my time. All right. So we already know everybody's burnt out, right? So now what the heck do we do? So having realistic expectations. So if, as of right now, if I were blind, I can do many things that we couldn't do, right? I can still work, but I'm probably not going to be able to drive a car. It's just, now in 5 years, I don't know the way things are progressing, but as of today, as a blind person, I could not drive a car. It's just not a realistic expectation. So if my loved one was blind and hit 16, and now I'm struggling and thinking, gosh, they just can't hit this milestone, and feeling bad, I'm in that first stage of caregiver fatigue again, and then what I end up doing is coddling my child, right? So now I'm coddling because I feel bad because of what I did in stage 3, and then we keep cycling through it. So having realistic expectations, and what I will say is, you set those expectations, not the professionals, not the teachers, not the psychiatrists, not the therapist. You set those. You set those based on the information that you gather from all of those folks. And do your due diligence and do as much research as you can elsewhere. I don't know, my niece and my nephew were both told that they would never graduate high school. They were actually told they wouldn't even talk. The girl won't shut up. Right? So, how do they know that someone who's neurodivergent at 3, 4, 5, 6 won't ever do this? You don't. We don't know that of somebody who's neurotypical. Like, oh yeah, they're really interested in this, they're definitely going to be president. You don't know that. We could say all kinds of things for that, but having a conversation with family and friends and talk about what's happening. So when we're isolating, a lot of times we are not talking to our family and saying, they're not understanding like actually what's going on behind closed doors. We're saying, God, I'm just so stressed, and I can't get my child to go to school. They just won't do it. And all they're saying is, well, you've got to have more boundaries. Well, if you just he's small, pick him up and take him. You've seen that not be, it doesn't work. And so they don't really understand what's going on. Now, I'm also fully aware that even a conversation sometimes with family is not going to do it. And you have to know your own family and environment. So and it sounds like you have a supportive environment, you've got hopefully work colleagues and folks that are supportive. But sometimes there's the folks in our lives they just don't get it, right? Well, yeah, little Susie didn't talk till she was like 5 years old, but look at her now. Why doesn't your kid? Because he's my kid. They're different. They're totally different. So those are the folks that you sort of like keep as much distance from, because they're toxic, and it increases the stress, right? And it increases an unrealistic expectation. So if you're here, you already do this. So it's kind of a moot point. But for other folks, sometimes they really don't have an awareness of what the disability is, what it causes, and with any disability, if you've met one person with the disability, you've met one person. There is no blanket, all people who are autistic. No, it's different. So, and you can remind the folks around you of that too. Okay, I just put eat well. So that's whatever it means to you. So, for me, it's making sure I drink enough water, right? That's all I'm asking myself to do. So we do need nutrients. You have to be able to have some fuel in order to do the work that you're doing. And so maybe if the diet, I think it's universally understood that if we're having candy and Coke all day, it's probably not so healthy. So maybe cut it down to one can, you know, one or 3 Cokes instead of 5 or something like that, right? But eat well, again, means what it means to you. So just incorporate if you're finding you're fatigued and maybe you don't get enough protein or whatever the case may be. I'm not a nutritionist. I know what all the doctors have told me, but so again, whatever that means to you, but fuel your body. It's really easy to say, I have to make sure that Johnny gets fed, and then we got to get out the door. But that's not helpful because later on you're going to be taxed and exhausted and not want to deal with Johnny.
Empty cup.
Exactly. Yes, you cannot pour anything else out of an empty cup. Exactly. I say movement, and there's scientific, when we're going to talk about breathing and the importance of that, but every therapist usually will tell you movement of some kind. You don't have to do aerobics or go to the gym. It doesn't matter. But even, you know, while you're preparing food, you're already multitasking anyway, but doing some pacing, right? Just taking a couple of extra steps, anything. Taking 30 seconds to do an extra stretch, just getting the endorphins and all of that stuff moving. So just keep it simple. If you can incorporate and go exercise and do all those things, that's great. But the reality is it's not very realistic for everybody. So, and that's really what I want. This one I don't compromise on, and it might have a little bit of a bias, but therapy is a must. And now there are so many therapists who are virtual that you can do that from the comfort of your home. I have parents that meet with me in their car while somebody's at practice. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility, and I think most therapists who you'd work with would be pretty accommodating in that way. But therapy gives you an outlet that is not your family and friends who are going to validate. There's 2 groups of family and friends. They're going to validate everything you say, which is great because we need those anchor people. And then there's the other ones that are going to tell you everything you're doing is wrong. Why are you doing it that way? And a therapist is that neutral party to help you process and talk about what you're feeling honestly, and now what do I do with all these feelings? So that's the benefit. And if you are, I think this should be, every parent probably needs a therapist, right? Every parent, in particular when you have neurodivergence. So respite in any form. Again, I had a friend that fought 18 months to try and get respite from community mental health, and finally, but it's not always an easy task. So when I say respite, I mean any form. Like if the neighbor, you know, says, let Johnny come over, even if it's 15 minutes, anything that people offer. And this is really hard for those of us who are caregivers because we're the ones doing the stuff, right? So it's not real natural for us to ask for help. There's also this perception that we have is that my child is a lot of work. They're a lot of work for me. So how can I ask somebody else? You just say, do you mind helping me out with Johnny? That's all you do. And most of the time, people are more than happy. It can also be, do you mind watching the other children while I take Johnny? Or there's a lot of different scenarios. So then if you want to talk about specific ones, I'm happy to do, we can do that after too. Breathing and controlling the breath. That is vital. And I'm sure you've had a lot of trainings on this. So we'll show a video in a second, but you hear this all the time, and I want to kind of share why it's important, because how many times do we go to a provider of any sort and they're like, oh yeah, you need to breathe, you need to take deep breaths, and we're like, well, I mean, okay. That didn't help, right? So what's the point of that, you know? And as he'll say in the video, how can breathing make any difference at all? Like, I have to breathe, so what do you mean? So let me see if, I think did we get volume?
I don't know if we got volume.
Okay.
So if you want to play it on your phone, I'll play it on the
Oh,
thing.
wait. I don't think video's yet.
Okay.
Hold on. because I talk about the glimmers, I think I talk about glimmers first, and then I'll come back to breath. Let me see, what did I do? Nope, we're talking about the glimmers first. Okay,
Okay.
just kidding.
Yep.
Just kidding.
Oh, well,
We'll come back to the breath. We'll come back to that. So the glimmers are the teeny little things, right? These are the things that most of the time we take for granted. And you notice that I didn't talk about, like, go get your hair done, get a pedicure. Those are lovely. Those are fantastic. And if you're able to, it's just not always realistic. It's not always financially sound. Take a long bubble bath. What caregiver can take a long bubble bath? No, you get bubbles on you when you're washing your child, but that's the extent of it. So you notice I focus on, and if nothing else, hopefully this you take away. And what I'd like you to do is, just as I'm sharing with you some of mine and some other ideas, think about yours. And they're the tiniest moments, right? So maybe it is drinking your favorite pop, right? Is it pop or soda in Florida?
I've heard both actually, but I think mainly soda.
Is it soda? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's maybe.
Is it soda? But sometimes, I know oh yeah, that's right, Coke, that's right. So a Coke, a soda, a pop, and a lot of times in our homes with neurodivergent individuals, we don't have this. So if you have a little stash hidden somewhere and you can drink your pop, that is a glimmer, right? Isn't it? It's just beautiful. Like, I can taste like a nice cold orange pop, right? So I personally love, one of my glimmers is in the spring, when you hear the birds the first thing in the morning. That is so peaceful to me. Do I sit there for 30 minutes and listen to the birds? Well, no. Who's got time to do that? But just just hearing it, it's like, okay. So that's one of my glimmers. This is my other one, my dad and my puppies, both there. Every time I walk by those dogs, I have to pet them. And my dad and I are finding our new normal, and sometimes just being present with each other. We don't have to say anything, but it just feels good. Like, oh, okay, Dad's home, and we don't say anything, but it's like, it's comfort, right? So that's one of my own personal glimmers. Coffee is non-negotiable. No braining before coffee. So again, these are just ideas. I like the rain when I'm inside on my couch with a blanket and the dogs. But the smell of it, the sound of it. And so again, it's not like I'm sitting there. Usually I'm probably got the computer in my lap and I'm doing work. But it's like that quick glimmer, like, right? This is our bathroom. Yeah, right. I don't know whose really nice bathroom that is, but I just wanted the symbol of, a shower. So sometimes those are really hard to come by when you're a caregiver. And maybe it is an extra 2 minutes, right? It doesn't, again, not long. It's just like, okay. And another one is locking yourself in the bathroom. No matter what's going on outside that door, right? The bathroom is always mom's hiding place anyway. It's a good place to stash candy somewhere, in a cab. And it's not realistic. You may not be able to stay there for 10 minutes. If you can, do it, by all means. But whatever's going on outside that door for like 30 seconds to 1 minute, nobody's in that amount of time they can't break the door in that amount of time, although my friends' kids could, they're pretty big. So your own household. But for the most part, that 30 seconds behind the door, and you're just tuning everybody out. I like the suit, and just being able to get dressed. See, but getting dressed. Oftentimes as caregivers, we're wearing our yoga pants, our sweat, which is great, right? It's comfortable, it's convenient. That's usually what's clean sometimes, and sometimes we throw it on dirty, whichever, it doesn't matter, right? But it feels good to not necessarily put a suit on, but every now and then, like, okay, I'm gonna put on jeans today. I'm not going anywhere, but it just kind of, makes me feel good. Put on some lipstick if you choose. Again, not, You don't have to go all out and do a full face, but I'm just going to do that so that when I see myself in the mirror, it's like, oh yeah, she's cute. Right? You do that a little, yeah, yeah. You notice I didn't say who puts it on, so it's whatever. Hey, you know. This is another one. This isn't mine, but I thought it was kind of cool. Somebody said the breath. You know, when you can see your breath, that's really like just, and it's what, 5 seconds to just kind of watch that, right? The crunching of the leaves, you know. So I mean, you can even be with your person, and you're just noticing the crunch of the leaves. It's just a quick glimmer, you know. A bedtime routine, and maybe it's staying up, which is could be a big ask, but staying up 5 to 10 minutes later. And maybe it's that you're just laying in bed doing nothing. Maybe you want to write, maybe whatever. But just giving yourself sort of this quiet before the storm in the morning. And likewise, in the morning, that's bubble wrap. Anybody else? Right? I mean, I don't care how old you are. When there's bubble wrap, we're doing it. And it's not expensive on Amazon. But any sensory stuff. The other day, I'm going to make myself sound so nuts, but on the basement floor, there was one of those Advil cold and sinus pills, and so I carried it around all day in my pocket and was using it as a fidget. It was so satisfying. So little things like that was my little glimmer that I used all day, right? Just that little, so any of those kind of things that, you know, the sunset, the sunrise, and sometimes, again, we don't have to sit and watch it except like, whoa, that is really cool. So, okay, the video comes up. Any glimmers of your own that you can think of? Okay.
For me, I think, so I work mainly in the morning,
Mhm.
so instead of, I started getting up extra 30 minutes before.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
I can just, you know, stay for a few minutes, do nothing, then just kind of set my
Yes.
day.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't really, once when my son is asleep, I'm like, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, oh yeah, you're crashing, yeah. So, and that's the thing too about it's like whatever works for you, so you've adjusted.
But I did
So.
notice, like, now with, like, the sun is rising earlier, I noticed, like, the sunrise, so it's really pretty.
Yes.
So when I'm going to the car, and I'm like, wow, you know,
That's awesome.
that's good.
That's awesome.
But
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I think that was pretty cool. And yeah, and definitely coffee all day.
Yes, yes. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I really shouldn't have this at 5 o'clock. I know it, but, you know, yeah. Awesome. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the breath. Okay, now. We'll see. It's one of those, you know, we embedded the video, but of course, it didn't want to. Technology. Do I need to pull it up too?
Yeah.
Do we need? Okay, hang on. So we'll have the video that you can see, and then I'll get the sound here. Okay, I'll find him. After a while. Breathing. Okay. Hang on, I gotta go through my commercial.
Per year, but you'd like to, I strongly encourage you to start a bookkeeping.
Okay. Okay, we're ready.
The theory of breath work is that breathing is the only thing you can do completely consciously or completely unconsciously. It's run by two different sets of nerves and muscles, by the voluntary system and the involuntary system. And as a result, it offers the only chance to get at and influence the involuntary nervous system. Disturbances in the involuntary nervous system are responsible for a great deal of chronic disease. The involuntary nervous system has two divisions, the sympathetic system which revs things up and prepares us for emergencies, for fight or flight responses, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which has the opposite effect. Both of these have to be in balance. In most people in our culture, the tone of the sympathetic system is much too high. There are all sorts of reasons for that. All the stimulation in the environment, stress, all of it. But most of us go through life with things tilted in that direction, and that is responsible for a lot of high blood pressure, circulatory problems, digestive problems, and so forth. Of all the methods that I've seen of relaxation, the most time-effective and cost-effective are breathing techniques. And I'll go over this one breathing exercise with you. I think this is an example of the kind of thing that integrative medicine can find out there that's not even on the radar screen of conventional medicine. When I try to talk to most doctors about breathing, breath work, they lose interest. It's too simple. It's not taken seriously because it's too simple. It literally makes use of something you have right under your nose. It uses no equipment. It's free. How possibly could it do anything? I mean, that's the attitude that prevails in our medical system. And this, as I said, this is a prime example. If you think about if just this one thing was brought into mainstream medicine, how much this would cut costs, cut adverse outcomes, improve medical effectiveness. Just one kind of thing that integrative medicine can bring into the mainstream. So the basic principle of breathing practice is to make your breath deeper, slower, quieter, and more regular. Those are the qualities of breathing that you want to develop. So whenever you think about it, if you're in a supermarket line, if you're driving, try to make your breath deeper, slower, quieter, and more regular.
Yeah, it did. We timed that good.
Never lose.
That was impressive. Should go into business. Okay, any thoughts?
So there's this book, I'm still kind of in the beginning, but I think it's called
What happened to you?
Habits of a Happy Brain, or
Okay.
something like
Yeah.
that. But so they were talking about like breathing and something to do like
The frontal lobe?
of the brain.
Yeah.
How when you take like 3 like deep breaths, put like extra oxygen into your brain,
Yes.
and that like gives like signals to like basically all of your body.
Yes.
So yeah, that was like familiar.
Good. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So we can do a quick breathing, but for time's sake, there's tons and tons of free resources and great books. But I think I just wanted to point out, he talked about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. Does that sound familiar to anyone? So years ago, right. So you don't have to remember the terms. I just want to give you some understanding of what is going on in your body. So that sympathetic is that fight or flight. So, the car stops in front of us and we hit the brakes and we do this. And then our body relaxes. The parasympathetic kicks in and says, oh, you're safe. Everybody's stopped. We're good. That's the way it's supposed to work. But when we're cycling through caregiver fatigue, what's happening is that part of the nervous system that is supposed to keep us safe, right? It's the fight or flight. It's firing constantly. So when you're feeling like everything's on my nerves, because it literally is. Literally, your nerves are firing and telling you, essentially, you've got to do something different because I don't like this. And so doing all those other things on the front end, the glimmers and support and things like that will help. And so, but the idea also behind that breath is if you can control your breathing, and I recommend practicing when something is not going on, because this is like a muscle. It's our brain and that nervous system. So, I'm not going out and running 3 miles. I would never run 3 miles, but if I were, I would still have to practice and build up to it. And the nervous system is the same way. So a lot of times, kids are taught in school, breathe. Well, I'm in the middle of a level 5 anxiety tantrum here. Not happening. There's no breathing involved. It can happen afterward, and we can practice. But if the practice is done on the regular basis when you're not in that state, it is so much easier to de-escalate sooner and to regulate yourself. But, you know, when we're in that third stage, you know, our body is like, okay, well, they're tearing something up. I got to wait, I got to clean the, oh, I got to make, oh, shoot, we didn't get the oil change. And adrenaline, cortisol, all that stuff is pumping through your body, and it's overtaxing. And then we can't sleep, or we sleep too much, and that's what so when we're able to control the breath and you slow it down, and there's a nerve, it's called the vagus nerve, that goes all the way into the stomach, and that's the one, you know, when you feel the butterflies, that's that nerve. That is what it is. It's telling you it's good. He's cute, go ahead, marry him, right? That's the nerve. It's that feeling. It ends after a while, right? But that's a whole nother workshop. But when I take that deep breath and, you know, it's belly breathing too. When we're anxious, we're breathing up here. When we're doing that deep breath, it's in the belly. You're filling up the diaphragm. So again, you can do that in the car, right? This is a glimmer. That you can do that in the car. You can do that in the grocery store. Like he said, it costs nothing, and it's extremely powerful. YouTube has tons of things that can. I do better even still when I'm walked through it. So I love to listen to a quick meditation on YouTube. I don't necessarily. They'll say, get comfortable in your seat and relax, and I'm like, you know, I'm driving. I just want to breathe with you. That's fine. You know, it doesn't have to have an earbud in while you're cleaning, making dinner, you know, and just listening to that. It's still sinking in up there. So that's really, really helpful. That's cool. What did you say the name of that book is?
I think it's Habits of a Happy Brain.
Okay. And so, you notice I had some quotes about caregivers, but this one was my favorite. I mean, Maya, you got to end with Maya, right? But as you grow older, you realize, you discover, have two hands, one for helping yourself and the other for others. So I thought that was pretty powerful, you know. And being a caregiver is really powerful. You're really making a difference. And like many underrepresented populations, right, we end up being an advocate for many others too. So when you're fighting for folks in school, when you're fighting doctors, and I mean, that's the reality, that's the world we're in, right? It's not, seems like it should just be, you know, I have these needs, and can you help me? Well, no, we have a few hoops, just a few. So that can be difficult too. Any questions, thoughts?
Yes,
Yeah, please.
so earlier in the presentation,
Mhm.
when it said therapy is a must, is that like a realistic, as far as like the financial aspect for a parent?
Okay, that's a valid point. So yes, with insurance, yes, right? And so, you know, if you need some resources, or, you know, I can, this is not an exhaustive list at all of resources, but no, you bring up a really valid point. So finances can be an issue, because a lot of times insurance, you know, now in Michigan at least, and I think across the United States, most, if you have insurance, if you have commercial insurance, they don't limit the number of sessions you can have anymore. Yeah, they changed that. So, but yes, that can be an obstacle. I agree. And it should. It's a broken system. Yeah.
When you say therapy is a must, therapy for whom?
The caregiver. Good question. Yes, therapy for the caregiver. It is very helpful to have your child participate in therapy. But for you as the caregiver, it's how do I manage my life with all of this? And then often there are also like parenting parenting groups and workshops. We have a couple of folks in our practice that work with parents on, okay, but this is the behavior. What is the best way? Can we do that? And they'll do some role playing and things like that. So, so it can be either of those. Sometimes it's I need that person to talk to each week, and sometimes it's like, okay, I need some more resources, so it can be a more educational, therapeutic thing too.
And what is the difference? You say you specialize in like play therapy. So because we were taking my son to like occupational therapy and speech therapy, and those are also like play based.
Yes.
So what is the
It's similar. It's very similar. So play therapy is, you know, this is how we learn. This is how animals learn. This is how we as humans learn, right? And so what we do from a therapeutic approach is, you know, in that space, the child is allowed to be whoever they want to be. So assuming there's no, I had a kid put the handcuffs on me, and they were the bad cop. They're playing out something, right? They're playing out something. Anger, right? Maybe they've seen something, so they get to do that and express themselves, because most kids and most individuals who are neurodivergent aren't able to walk in and just go, yeah, so I would just had a lousy week, and these are the things that happen. But they can play it out, and so we do that through a variety of different ways: sand, puppets, games. So it would be very similar to what he's. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? I'll stick around too. So if you have additional questions, I can stick around. That way we can. I didn't do too bad.
You did great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We'll give Bridget one more round of applause. Do you have some cards? And
I
things you
do.
can give?
I do. Actually, I have a couple